Atelier Ryza is the successor of a long-standing series that are not connected, but it seems that many games share the same world with guest occurrences. As a video introduction, I presume I should tell you quickly if this game is for you or not. If you like deep combat mechanics, you should avoid this title. If you like high graphical fidelity and gripping tight story, then keep away. But if you like good characters, decent main plot and crafting, then this game could be for you. It's hard to grasp what the game wants to do. When I first played the Atelier series, it felt like at one point there was a meeting at the Gast Corporation regarding what the next game should be. Who is our aim group? Asked employee number 1. Boys and girls, says the boss. What do girls like? Asked employee number 2. Cute characters, dresses and light-hearted environment. Answers number 3. What do boys like? Asked the janitor who's trapped in the ceiling since last Monday. Complex progression systems. Okay, boom, here's Atelier. I know how strange this sounds, but this kind of brutal mesh of numbers and systems mixed with cute characters seems like the last stage of an identity crisis, but it's compelling. In this video I will explain the combat, crafting, the characters and the story in this order. Combat might be the shortest part, because it's an active battle system, like in many Final Fantasy games, aka turn-based combat with extra steps. You have 3 active characters. You can attack, use items, use skills or move, which is useless besides escaping. There's also the tactics level, which increases after getting enough AP by attacking. You also need AP for skills or to make a quick action, which lets you act immediately. Your allies sometimes tell you to do stuff, which if you follow will trigger a special move, for example using a certain skill or items. You and your enemies have a health bar and a stun bar. If the stun bar is depleted, you cannot act and sustain more damage. Items lets you either throw bomb-like objects or use healing. There are immunities against the 4 elements, which are standard fire, ice, wind and earth, lightning? It is not our standard understanding of elements, which come from the Greek philosopher Thales. In Japanese culture they have other elements like iron and lightning. As science progressed, we discarded this theory, and our newest and up till now most correct model is that everything is composed of 17 elementary particles categorized as quarks, leptons and bosons. Speaking of progression, the game does give you bonuses if you perform certain actions, like gathering specific items or use certain skills, which is a nice way of incorporating other mechanics into the combat. But overall the combat is at best serviceable, and that's fine because it's not the focus of the game, it's crafting. When we usually talk about crafting heavy games, we picture stuff like Minecraft, Don't Starve or Terraria, but that's not really the case for those games. The focus of these titles is the acquisition of resources. The crafting itself is uncomplex and done with a click or a button press. The difficulty in Minecraft of obtaining a diamond sword is getting diamond. The rest is done within seconds. Of course, in Ryza there is also a lot of resource gathering, because it goes hand in hand with crafting, but you will spend less time doing that later. In Atelier Ryza you will spend a lot of time on this screen. Crafting has multiple factors: the quality of the item, the effects, the stats and the traits. When you craft an item, you can unlock nodes. To do this you need elemental value, which is an intrinsic stat each item has, and is dependent on the quality. For example, if a node needs 5 element points to unlock, but my item only has 3, I need to use 2 items, or I need to get a higher quality item with more elemental value. Using 2 has its own demerits, because when crafting you can only use a certain number of items. So by using too much on certain nodes, you will not be able to unlock other nodes. Items also can have an effect, for example synthesis +1 defense, means that if I use that item, my end result will have +1 defense. Traits are too numerous to list, but you can also pick them when you finish the item, based on what traits the ingredients had. So in the best case I want a high quality item with good effects and good traits. Best is I show this on one equipment. For our example we make a weathered sword. We need ingots as well as animal products and seafood. Ingots is an item you can craft yourself. So first we craft an ingot with very high quality. This can be done by using loops or with already high quality ingredients. For the ingot, we want all the nodes because they give bonuses to our end product, so we fill out everything. Then we copy the ingot, which is later available in the story, to get multiple 999 quality ingots. We also need seafood. We could put any fish in it, but the quality won't be high enough. Instead, we make another item called fish bait, which counts as seafood and make it have max quality. We can do the same for animal product and then use it on our weathered sword. Each node of the weathered sword gives bonuses we want, so we fill out everything with high quality. As you can see in the bottom right screen, using the ingots will increase the stats of the item. So after filling out all nodes, we dump all the ingots. Now we have a high quality sword with high quality stats. But the traits inherited from the ingredients are all quality related. So we make another ingot with stat improving traits and use a mechanic called item rebuild. This lets you modify an existing item, but stuff like quality and the stats effects won't apply. But with this method we can get better traits on our sword, which now has massive stats for its level. This is almost every item. At the end you have a bunch of high quality items you copy and use on new stuff. And this makes up around 70% of the playthrough, which polarizes the player base. If you like crafting and spending time of increasing numbers, you will really like this game. But if you don't, you will absolutely hate it. This puzzle-like approach on crafting feels a bit similar to Factorio, just with big anime titties cheering you on the background, which sounds like an improvement on paper. Speaking on the boobies, our protagonist Ryza is a well-endowed girl. But from a narrative and design perspective, she is not sexualized. She is casually dressed like a woman would for summer. I'm saying this because there's one part that feels a bit off for me, and that is the camera. It feels like most of the stuff wanted to picture a normal girl, but the programmer who is in charge of the camera seems to be pretty horny, which comes up in many scenes or when Ryza needs to go through obstacles. This may be the first for me where a single game aspect turns a character from decent to over the top. Besides that, Ryza is a shipper personality that hangs out with her two best friends, Lent and Tao. All three of them want to leave the island for adventures. There's also Ryza's parents, and I feel so sorry for them because Ryza is a terrible daughter. You could get along with Ryza on a friend base, but she never helps out at the house, neither does she help her parents. Ryza is 17, and her mom and dad want her to help out with the family business, which is farming. But she sneaks out or runs away. She is seldom at home, and even the story seems to forget her parents in the middle. There's one thing with helping out on your own accord, which you should do, but if someone dear to you asks for help, you should never dump in like that. Her friends are better though. Lent is the son of a mercenary and gets often hit by his father. His friends and anime titles in general have a high tolerance when it comes to domestic violence. Tao is pretty much the opposite and loves books, translating and researching. The game begins in Ryza's home on Kirken Island, in the village of Rasenboden. This continues a long-standing trope of using random German words for characters and places. The city guard, Agatha, confirms that Ryza and Co. are troublemakers when Ryza comes to the village, because she heard there is a merchant from the mainland, and she's curious. The merchant is not there yet, but the city guard is occupied, so the Ryza gang uses this opportunity to sneak off to the mainland, with a secret port that is so secret you can see it from Ryza's house. When exploring the mainland, the gang meets a girl in trouble and save her. Her name is Claudia and they become friends. She's on her way to Rasenboden with her father, who is third merchant. On the way back they get attacked by a far stronger monster, but they get saved by Ampel and Lila. Ampel looks very pale, like a corpse, and I don't think I have to comment on Lila. Ampel is an alchemist and Ryza is stunned by the bomb Ampel uses. Not literal, she just develops a keen interest in alchemy. They travel together to the port, where Claudia's father awaits, together with the local town guard Agatha. Ampel and Lila are on a journey and will stay for a while. On the island, Claudia's father is greeted by Moritz Brunnen, who is the de facto leader of the town, because he's loaded. Ryza, Lent and Tau share a rivalry with Bo's Brunnen, Moritz's son. They obtained their wealth by owning the only fresh water source on the island, which no one challenges. Really, people should just band together, take the property and declare water, you know, the basis of every life, to be a public good. Mr. Nestle here won't like it, but some things are too important for a society to be owned privately. On another note, you cannot really own a river and its source. You cannot stop the water. It will just move in a different direction or break every dam you lay on its path. There is a reason for being able to turn off the water, but from the viewpoint of almost every citizen, this should not make sense. Like most rich people, Moritz wants to become more rich and invited Claudia's father to establish a trade route. The gang and Claudia want to keep in touch while Bose shows up and is very hostile. Ryza meets Ample and asks him to teach her alchemy. Alchemy in this world is something magical that can create almost anything and dissolve most things, among them plot consistency. Ample can teach and do basic alchemy, but a hand injury prevents him from doing advanced alchemy and other stuff for which he has Lila. We now get gradually introduced into gathering and the process of alchemy, which I described earlier. Meanwhile, Lent is being taught by Lila and Tau learns ancient languages from Ample. After some time training, they decide to visit Claudia. From now on, they hang out pretty often, socializing, talking about their days, very slice of lifey. At one point, they decide to build their own hideout in the woods, with the help of alchemy, because they want a place to follow their hobbies, without disturbance from their parents. You make the basic materials and renovate an old house in the forest that is free of monsters. It's a cozy place where every character puts in their stuff and they add more and more to it, like a garden, and the place becomes their second home. Then in the forest they meet a creature they have never seen before, but it's extremely scary to them. They ask Ample and Lila about it, but they won't tell them much, but want to see the place for themselves, and so they get invited to the hideout where they will be staying for most of the time. Claudia wishes to join them, not just to hang out, but also on their adventures. But her father does not allow her, because it's a world full of monsters and I don't blame him. He tasks Ryza in proving that she can be trusted. First, we repair an old building of the town with alchemy. Meanwhile, the local fish industry declines fast and Ryza gives them fish bait as a solution which works. Claudia's father counts this as a past second trial, even though it did not come from him. As the last trial, they have to race Bo's group to a local ruin. Bose is as hostile as ever, but gets later attacked by a dragon and we save them. Claudia's father now trusts us and lets Claudia go with us on adventures in a place where a giant dragon is attacking people. The dragon poses a bigger problem. First, the drought season is about to start and the food industry will be down. The dragon occupies the road to Rasenboden and this is a risk to the food supply during the drought. It also is bad for Moritz's new merchant route, so they assemble a dragon hunting party around Bose and Agatha, who's opposed to the idea. We follow them into an abandoned castle. The castle apparently was destroyed when facing off an enemy and is now the home of the dragon. Bose and Co are in danger, so Ryza saves them. Bose is extremely distraught at being saved by people he has been looking down upon for the last 10 years. While he's recovering, Ample finally tells us why he's here. A very long time ago, there was a kingdom called Clint. Think of it like the Roman Empire. It was far more advanced, like a person from the 15th century looking back at the Roman Empire with sewers, bathhouses, streets and many more advancements we only recently overtook as a species. The Clint Kingdom used alchemy to open gates to different worlds for resources. These worlds had native inhabitants, called Orans, which Lila is part of. Orans are different to humans in many ways, for example the lifespan. It is hinted at that Lila is a couple of hundred of years old. The Orans were defeated by the Clint Kingdom, and to better gather resources, they drained all water from that world. This invited the Pelusia, which are ant-like creatures that have water as a weakness. They come through the gates and destroyed the Clint Kingdom, which used summoned dragons and fortresses to defend them. That's why we find so many ruins around. The gates are still standing in some places and Ample and Lila try to close them. There must be an active gate nearby because the creature we were scared of in the beginning was a Pelusha scout unit. The Clint Kingdom invading other worlds for resources is something I find very realistic or relatable. If we had the technology to do that, you can bet that we would enslave and exploit dozens of worlds. And if you think we would not do that because we are ethical more advanced, just look at how we still treat native populations in different parts of the world. We usually give them land we don't need, which is often infertile, and if we discover gold or other stuff, we move them at our leisure, as if they were furniture at a Feng Shui training seminar. We come back and talk with Moritz, Bose and many others. It seems that Ryza, Tau, Lent and Bose were friends at one point, but they drifted apart. It wasn't something spectacular. Ryza was in danger while playing near a river, and Bose ran to get help. The others then shouted at Bose while he abandoned them as a reflex. Both parties don't feel good about this, but cannot reconcile with each other. It's a meaningless argument, which is pretty much the standard for human interaction in my experience. The local fishers are in peril again and need stronger bait, which we will give to them, but it does not work. With the fish vanishing and monster appearing, the people of Kirken Island do what many people do in that situation. They blame newcomers and strangers. Ample and Lila are scrutinized, and Bose spreads weird rumors. Ample says there is a monster in the waters, but no one believes him. As a security measure, he wants us to build a monster attractor. Then the town holds a trial, when the monster suddenly attacks, of course lured in by the attractor. We defeat it and save the port, and now people believe Ample. Bose, as the originator of the rumors, gets blamed by Ryza, who then runs off in a mix of embarrassment and guilt. I really don't understand why, but he runs straight into the territory of the Pelusha and enters the Underworld, which is the name of the other world beyond the gate. Maybe someone can tell me in the comments. We follow him and see the world for ourselves, which is very reddish. It's full of monsters and the home of Lila. We find Bose, who was saved by another Oran named Kilo. Bose and the group reconciles and they bring him back to Rasenboden, while leaving Kilo behind for now. Before we depart, Kilo tells us that when the Clint Kingdom extracted all water from the world, they used a strange orb, which Bose recognizes and wants to show the group at Brunnen Manor. Before we go there, please notice this waterfall. Please guess for a moment how much water flows through here every second. I reveal the answer later, and if you want to brag about your guessing skills, you can write it in the comments. Boss's ancestor once found an artifact in a ruin, which they brought to Kirken Island and was the foundation of the Brunnen family's wealth. It's an orb that lets out water. They enshrined it and made the flow underground so it's less suspicious. And the answer to my question, how much water flows down the waterfall, is way too fucking much for this shitty little orb with its piss fountain. There is no way this little stream supports the whole island. Bose regrets using the orb and wants to return it to Kilo, but this also would endanger the island itself. So they wait, because a status quo that benefits the powerful is better than undoing wrongdoings. Instead, we try to find another way with the plot dissolver called alchemy. I actually don't mind that I resolve everything by crafting. It's the center point of the game and you could say it's in the name. And it's more fitting than solving everything with the power of friendship. We also use it to restore Ample's arm by crafting something like a glove for him. Bose tells us that the orb comes from a tower, northwest of Kirken Island, where we go next. It was another fortress, defending against the Pelusha, and they all died there. We find a key and a diary. The Clint Kingdom built an artificial island, which is now named Kirken Island, to survive the Pelusha. We investigate this and find a secret entrance below the island. The island is held afloat by alchemy, and the power is about to run out. Just now, right when we arrived. I really hate coincidences like that. It's unrealistic and makes the story turn into a parody. Speaking of coincidences, if we can power up the island again, it will also magically solve our water problem, because it can turn salt water into fresh water. The power source is from the underworld. The Pelusha threat is nearing and we have to do something about this. So the group discusses what to do. They cannot destroy the gate, because it would release enough energy to pulverize the whole region. So the group decides on a very complex plan. They go into the gate and kill the queen. Ample's very good argument against this is that it is very dangerous, and Ryza's rebuttal is, but what if we succeed? This is not a new argument, this is just repeating the initial proposal again. And they all band together and have this big moment where Ryza goes through her town, speaks with her parents and everyone, and sees how important her home is to her. But it is still the most dangerous plan. It isn't even a plan, it's just beating the problem till it stops crying, which does only work with babies. We then meet Kilo again, fight through hordes of monsters and kill the queen. Then use the queen's crystal to make a new power source for the island. And return the orb to Kilo. There isn't much to say because it is that straightforward, and I want to get into criticizing the story. But let's start with the positive part. The story is not just about the world-ending plot, it's about adventure and has a certain dichotomy to it. There is on one hand the quote main story with the Pilusha and the power source on the island, but also the slice of life part. Ryza and friends have a problem many in their teens have, which is they don't know where they belong or what they want to do with their lives. They have teen-like problems, they have problems with their parents, they have dreams. For example, Claudia. She has a tough time making friends because she's constantly moving with her father. She likes to help him out, but also lost her mother very early. Her mother loved the flute, as an instrument, you ding-dongs, and Claudia also learns how to play it, but does so in secret because of her father. She thinks it will hurt him, as it reminds him of her mother. Before the final fight, she finally finds the courage to play before her father. Many of the characters follow a similar development, and so the first Ryza game has better characters than any of the Persona games, where they do the same thing as before, but just for a slightly different reason. Sorry for the swipe towards Persona, but in those games all characters have just one hobby and one catchphrase, and they generally feel like they were made with the most simplest Excel sheet. And so they feel shallow and flat, but in Ryza, characters not only develop, but they also have a deeper history and more than a single hobby, like normal humans would. So the slice of life story ends de facto with the gang making up with boss and everyone finding out what they want to do with their life. So it's very fitting that Ryza, besides being the one who wanted to leave the island for adventure the most, is the one who stays behind. The others go to academies or on journeys, but Ryza finally found her place, and her desire for adventure was rooted in her deep uncertainty that is her personal future. Also, she does not like farm work. She should still help her parents. Because of how these two main stories are interwoven with each other, most people will not even realize that this game has two storylines. They are connected, and this makes the Atelier games very unique. The problem which the game has is with the ratio between these two parts. While I enjoy Slice of Life, it's not my favorite, and Ryza has slightly too much for me. Most people who don't like Slice of Life have a quantity-oriented reaction, something of the lines of "Where is the plot? Nothing has happened. This interaction was pointless." Slice of Life is an aspect of storytelling that is slow. There is not much happening like in most people's life, thus the name. Going shopping with your friends, talking about your hobbies, or simply hanging out. The reaction of "where is the plot" is the intended experience. But when mixed together with a world-ending story, it creates a narrative dissonance. It feels weird hanging out with characters or do pointless stuff while your island is about to sink and ant demons are about to end human civilization. Persona also has this problem, and this leads me to the conclusion that very high stakes stories and very low stakes stories should not be put together. This could also be a pacing issue, because Slice of Life was very good at establishing characters and their social interaction and traits. So endangering all this later should feel more urgent, which it failed because of how they treated the Pilusha. The power level of characters in many games are separated by narrative and gameplay. You can be very high level and kill everyone while the story treats you like a Joe Schmo. Or on the other hand, you are a low level squirt while a badass in the story. The way I understand it, Ryza became powerful within the story, but not on a level that she could take on armies or a squad of elite soldiers, but powerful enough to deal with most adversaries. but in no way they should have been able to kill the Pelusha Queen. The Pelusha Queen were a threat to all humans, destroyed the most advanced kingdom on their own, and here we have 4 teenagers, Count Dracula and Tiddy McGee, going in on the Pelusha's home turf and not even sneaking and fighting the queen head on. Either our characters are on a level where each country should have countermeasures against us, or the Pelusha are so weak, 20 kids throwing stones also would have done it. The problem is not that we have to kill the Pelusha Queen. The problem is we do it head on, power against power, which means that we are equal in power on a narrative basis. Instead, we should have made a giant bomb with alchemy, then a cloaking device, sneak up on the queen and her goons, plus Team Pelusha off again, and then dealt with the now weakened queen. In terms of gameplay, it could have been the same fight, but now it makes more sense. Also, the Pelusha's weakness is water, which is what the world mostly consists of. The Clint Kingdom managed to train all water from a whole world and transported it. How could they have lost against a species that is weak against water while having this power? This makes little sense because the weakness is too abundant and easy accessed. It's saddening that the overall decent story ends on such a low level, when the solution is very simple and feasible and would have been in line with the crafting of the game. The gameplay itself is very well paced in my opinion, because up to the end you always get more stuff to do and more things to craft. Many games give you their whole assets at 20% of the story and you just increase the numbers. But in Ryza you have the satisfaction of exploring and experimenting with new game mechanics up to the very end. That also comes with huge negatives. There is no quality of life in any of the mechanics. In the story we find a bottle that can create worlds, where we can gather resources, which is depending on what we put into them. But we cannot easily search it. We have to go through thousands of items until we find the resource we want. We also get a pet slime that we can feed, and after 9 times feeding it, it goes on a journey and comes back with resources. We have to feed the slime 1 resource at a time, and each time get thrown out of the menu and get a pointless dialogue sequence, and then redo this. The same for gardening, which gives you the best resources in the game if done right. You have to sow seeds and harvest every field one by one. There is so much time waste in all of this. So if I had to give the game a score, it would be a 7 out of 10. It loses massive points for the ending, the missing quality of life features and the boring combat. I hope you like this, and I wish you farewell.